You need to know yourself, and you need to know whether you are fit to fly or not fit to fly. You got to know your body, you got to know your strengths, and you got to know what really works for you.
Most pilots don't understand what career opportunities are available in the world of aviation. They're making career decisions based on advice from friends or posts on internet forums, meaning they are taking huge risks with their livelihood without having all the details. This podcast was created to help you understand the aviation industry so you can find your dream job. Let's get ready for Pushback. Here's your host and my dad, Nik Fialka.
Hey, pilot, welcome to Ready for Pushback. I'm Nik Fialka. I'm so glad you're joining me today. It's story time with Uncle Nick, and I want to tell you about something that happened to me this past week. I fatigued from a deadhead. Now, let me break it down for you and tell you what happened. This whole thing started when I had my first trip to Costa Rica, and I went down there on a Tuesday with a line check airman who is put in the right seat by the company to fly with you down to a place that is difficult to get into. It requires a special qualification to get into San Jose, Costa Rica, because there's massive mountains on 3 of 4 sides, and you have to be so dang careful when you go in and go out of there, and you have to know exactly how to do it. And they send you with a check airman to give you all the details on the first try. So we went down there. It was a wild ride. We had a great time in Costa Rica, and then we flew back to Atlanta. From Atlanta, we parted ways. I said goodbye to my friend Hobie, and we went to Jacksonville. We had a great time in San Jose, and then we flew back to Atlanta. And Hobie, who lives in Jacksonville, jump seated on my flight. I had another turn after that to go to the overnight in Jacksonville. So he got out of the right seat and jumped into the jump seat, and we went down there. Had a great time in Jacksonville that night. Just kind of went to bed, got up. 11 a.m. show time for old Uncle Nick in Jacksonville, and I go with the crew that's flying the plane. I'm going to deadhead, and if you don't know what a deadhead is, basically you are a pilot sitting in the back of the plane. The company puts you in the back of the plane. They fly you to wherever they need you to start a trip, and then you jump out of the plane and go fly some other plane somewhere else. So I was going to go and deadhead back to Atlanta and then fly. I think I was going to like Norfolk or Richmond or who knows where. I was going somewhere. Well, our plane is delayed about 3.5 hours, if I remember correctly. And it was weather, and there were some maintenance issues and this and that. And finally, the plane shows up. We get on the plane, and I said goodbye to the crew, and I went to the back and sat down and tried to go get a nap. And it's hard to be 6'4", sitting in an airplane seat that doesn't recline and get a nap. So that was tricky. We pushed back, and then we stopped. And then they're like, hey, we can't get the other engine started. There's something wrong. We're going to go back to the gate and troubleshoot it. So that took another hour and 45 minutes. Went back to the gate, another hour and 45 minutes. They finally fixed the thing that's up with the engine, and we push back again. And then there's a ground stop in Atlanta, and it's another 50 minutes. And we're sitting there for time and time and time and time and time and time and time. And we go, and we end up going, finally, Atlanta opens up, we go to the hold short, and then there is another issue with maintenance. And, oh no, we had below our min fuel. So we have to go back to the gate, get gas, start the engine with a huffer start and all the weird ways of starting it. And we were like hours and hours late. It's finally 9 p.m. 9 p.m. I started at 11 a.m. 9 p.m. finally got to Atlanta. I was beat. I checked my schedule. They had rerouted me to, instead of going to the overnight, they were sending me to take off at the end of my duty day I had an hour and like 40 minutes left, and they gave me an hour and 30-minute flight to Orlando, which is usually no big deal, except for the fact that it was a line check. And guess what? My buddy Hobie, who I had just flown with, he was going to be doing the line check. And it didn't land until something like 1:30, 1:45. And I thought to myself, man, like there's so much risk in that. It's been a long day, a lot of things going on. There's weather all over Florida. It's never nice. And they want to give me a line check, even though this guy's my friend and he's amazing. He listens to the show. Hey, Hobie, you're awesome. I love you. I think you're the best. But I was tired. I was beat. I was worn out from a long day and just sitting. And all I did was sit. I didn't fly. I didn't do nothing. But I was fatigued. I needed to call it. I called Hobie, and the first thing I did was chat with him, and he was so excited. And I felt like, oh, he was such a nice guy, and I didn't want to fatigue out and just leave him hanging. And so I said goodbye and hung up. And I thought about it, and I was like, I just got to tell him. And so I called him right back. I'm like, hey, dude, I just can't do it. I got to fatigue out. And he says, oh, man, that's okay. No big deal. Like, that's smart. It's been a long day. I think you're doing the right thing. That means a lot to me. Like when you have somebody that's in your life that you really respect and they think that you have good decision-making, that is awesome. And I called the company and I told them I was fatigued, and they said, all right, no problem. We got you. And we covered it. And it was no big deal. They literally cut me loose. I went home. I didn't get home until so dang late. It was such a long day, but I was beat. And now that I have a couple days from the actual event, I know that I made the right call. I don't always make the right call, but I know that one it's just so long. You got to know your body. You got to know your strengths, and you got to know what really works for you. I try to know myself and not push myself and be comfortable. A lot of people are really scared about that fatigue call because they're worried that if they have too many of them, the company's going to start coming around the corner and looking at them. And I'll tell you, you're in a company where they schedule you crazy long hours. You got to do what's right for you, because if you ball it up, if you put a plane in the ground, like they're going to be talking about you for eternity. You're playing those videos. I mean, you don't want to be that statistic. You don't want somebody to make a YouTube video about your last flight, right? You need to know yourself, and you need to know whether you are fit to fly or not fit to fly. And when it comes down to it, you've got to make a big boy or big girl decision. The rest of the story is the fact that a couple days later, I'm chatting with Hobie, and he said, dude, be so glad that you called in fatigued. He's like, we didn't get out of there till like 2 a.m. And so it was just a huge cluster, and it was a mess. And I would have hit the end of my duty day anyway. And so you have all these things, and you never know what it is, but you just, like, the whole point of this whole episode is knowing yourself and knowing when you're fit to fly and knowing when you're not, and being bold enough and brave enough to make that call. Because it's really tough, especially if you are a first officer and you've got some captain breathing down your neck and he's like ready to go home. Maybe he's a commuter and he doesn't want to miss his commute, and you need to fatigue. Like, go freaking do it. Go do it. Don't take the pressure. Just do it. It's so smart. You need to know yourself, and you need to know your capabilities. And that's your lesson for today. So thanks for listening to me. I hope your day is crushing. I hope you're in the clouds sometime today, and I'm thankful for you. Thank you for being part of my little life here. We'll see you on the next show. This is important. Before you go, you need to know that 2024 is going to be unbelievably competitive in the world of pilot hiring, and you need to make sure that you separate yourself from the herd. The only way that you can guarantee that you'll land your dream job is by partnering with Spitfire Elite Interview Consulting. We are the only choice for application review and interview prep. We are the partners that you've been looking for from start to finish, and it's never too early to be part of our community. Just go over to my website, spitfireelite.com, and use the coupon code R4P to save yourself 10% on all of our services. Again, that's the letter R, the number 4, and the letter P to save 10%. So go out there and slay your interviews.